They haven't done that in a long time, but we did it for 4 years, and that's why we did so well. That's why it was one of the great presidencies, they say. Even the opponents sometimes say that he did very well. I have to say, take it back, they scream. His people say, take it back. They want to talk about your dishwashers and how much water you're going to have in your dishwasher, even though they don't work. And all of the other things that you have that were so precious and dear and that you never really appreciated until now because they want to take them away. But I think if you had a real election and Jesus came down and God came down and said, I'm going to be the scorekeeper here, I think it would win there. I think it would win in Illinois, and I think it would win in New York, which is all places that, in theory, only got indicted once. He got indicted. I got indicted 4 times because I'm questioning a crooked election. But we're not questioning it. We know the results. We know it.
Well, the former president finally got around to some campaign promises amid lots of cheering, as you heard. Many untruths. The 2020 election was not rigged. It was not stolen.
Oh, that's gonna hurt!
Well, you know how the Christmas tale goes. On the 4th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me. A Fox News host fact-checking Trump to avoid another $787 million fine for lying to infinity.
Going to fight to give much better health care than what you have right now. This is a newer subject, but Obamacare is a disaster. And I said, we're gonna do something about it.
They always want to point to Democrats and say this isn't working, but they never have a plan that says our plan is this and this is the plan that would work. Look, pulling health care from people, whether it is 1,000, 1,000,000, 10 million plus, which we have on Obamacare, is stupid. It's unwise, and I would even argue it's immoral.
Trump held a rally this weekend, which means buck her up for more lies than Marjorie Taylor Greene told her book publicist. Seriously, get a look at the reviews. And before I go in and fact check some of the 102 false claims that Trump has made already this fall going into winter, it seems that Fox News themselves are fed up of the former president blatantly lying through his teeth. It's either that or they didn't want to foot another Dominion Christmas party bill, so they thought it best to tell the truth for once.
And when we go through courts, if we ever even have to do it, because you have presidential privilege, and also we should never have to do that. But if we do, we want to redo the election only from the standpoint, we want that election, we want to look at it very carefully. We have so much information. There was so much corruption in that election. You take a look, it's incredible. Just the other day in Georgia, 3,600 votes that were duplicated so that you had double votes. Almost all of them were for Sleepy Joe Biden, right? Every single vote. You take a look what they do and what they play and what the Democrats have done for a long time, but it's a disaster. And we have to get in and we have to clean it up, and we want to go paper ballots. We want to go voter ID, same day election. No more mail-in ballots. We don't want mail-in ballots. He said, we've got a red button on my desk, he said. I said, I have a red button also, but mine's bigger, better, and it works. Mine works. And then, no.
Well, the former president finally got around to some campaign promises amid lots of cheering, as you heard. Many untruths. The 2020 election was not rigged. It was not stolen.
Many untruths is right. Now, if you tuned into Meidas over the weekend, you would have noticed we had quite the special guest on the network who spoke a little bit about the importance of preserving our democracy, something the former president continues to undermine with his lies about the 2020 election.
Make of just the MAGA Republican influence over the Republican Party in general, with she's saying that she's ultra MAGA.
You know, we are addressed as MAGA extremists, extreme MAGA Republicans. And I would like to make just a clarification point. It's ultra MAGA.
She's ultra MAGA, all right. Look, for years I served in the Senate. Some of my closest friends, and that's not hyperbole, were people I disagreed with, Republicans. There are 7 Republicans still in the United States Senate who come up to me since I've been president and say, Joe, I agree with you, but if I vote with you at all, I'm going to be primary to lose my election. There's a lot of really solid people. But this makes up, I don't know, what, 35%, 30% of the Republican Party? There's a lot of really decent, honorable conservatives who move from a position of trying to figure out how they can do the most for the most people in a way that's fair to everybody. but she's clearly not one of them.
President Biden, of course, appeared alongside Ben to discuss a quote that I think is going to serve as quite the moral compass for American voters as we approach 2024.
Biden is very fond of saying, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative.
Almighty out there, and those watching right now who fear for our democracy and who just care about our democracy.
I made a speech in Independence Hall saying that our democracy is at risk. And even the press said, what are you talking about? Well, guess what? The vast majority of the American people thought it was too. The idea that they have a former president who may be their nominee saying that he thinks they should be able to essentially walk away from the Constitution. He should be, the things they're saying are just off the wall. The idea that democracy is inevitable is just not true. It's under siege. And we have to put a stamp of democracy on everything we do.
And let's look at said alternative, who got on stage over the weekend and proudly reiterated this.
I will immediately restore and expand the Trump travel ban. Day one, I will immediately restore and expand the Trump travel ban. Remember when they said, oh, that's so vicious?
And while this is true, he also lied countless times, but let's look at some of them. Trump continues to proclaim on stage that there were no wars during his presidency, that, quote, we had no wars. I got out of every war. We defeated ISIS. We got out.
Hezbollah is very smart. They're all very smart. The press doesn't like when they say it. Did the job ourselves, and it was absolute precision, magnificent, beautiful job.
This is a lie. At the end of his presidency, US troops remained in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Syria. And Trump kept a contingent of troops in Syria throughout his presidency, even after he claimed the US troops were, quote, out. And as we know, it was President Biden who got troops out of Afghanistan. Now, as the Biden administration rightfully comes under scrutiny concerning the ongoing conflict in Israel-Palestine, something Trump is attempting to use to score points for himself, also said in an October speech to the Republican Jewish coalition that Hamas, Hezbollah fighters, and jihadists are infiltrating across our, quote, wide open border. They're all over the place, he said.
Former President Donald Trump is warning his supporters to be on high alert for members of Hamas, the group carrying out attacks on Israel. Paul Spade checks his claim for PolitiFact.
Members of Hamas crossed the southern border into the United States. Well, that's what former President Trump said on Truth Social the other day, saying the same people that raided Israel are pouring into the U.S. through our totally open southern border. Is this right? No, actually. First off, the border is not totally open. Secondly, the Department of Homeland Security told us there's no evidence that Hamas poses any threat to the U.S. and is much less crossing the southern border. It's actually extremely rare for terrorists from any group to do that. Since 1975, 9 foreign-born terrorists have entered the U.S. illegally. And of those, only 3 did so by crossing the southern border, and they were all children at the time. You can see their ages there.
But as the CPB put out in response to Trump deliberately misleading to fearmonger, the CPB had to note that there has been no indication of Hamas-directed foreign fighters seeking to make entry into the United States.
The title of this hearing is Terrorist Entry Through the Southwest Border. When I first heard that was the title, my reaction was, what terrorist entry through the Southwest border? 0 people have been murdered in attacks committed by terrorists who entered as illegal immigrants.
And continuing on from his only tactic, Trump claimed in an October speech in New Hampshire that Biden had, quote, proclaimed that the #1 terror threat was not ISIS or Al-Qaeda, but Trump supporters themselves. Now, of course, this again is not true. Biden claimed the #1 domestic threat in the US is white supremacy or, quote, domestic terrorism rooted in white supremacy. But here's the thing, is anyone surprised that Trump took insult to this and thought it meant him or his cult following? I mean, it takes one to know one. And just at his recent rally this weekend, Trump claimed that Obamacare was a disaster and that he, wait for it, saved it.
Going to fight to give much better health care than what you have right now. This is a newer subject, but Obamacare is a disaster. And I said, we're gonna do something about it. I saved Obamacare when we got John McCain's negative vote. You know, he voted against it after campaigning for many, many years. He said, thumbs down. It was an amazing night, but we're going to fix it because it's a catastrophe for family budgets. Even Elizabeth Pocahontas Warren, have you ever heard of her? No, she's Pocahontas because of her great Indian heritage. She even said that it needs to be fixed. Pocahontas said it has to be fixed, so we're going to fix it.
This, of course, is another untruth, considering Trump promised an Obamacare alternative that has still never seen the light of day.
Much to the Republican chagrin, Obamacare has proven probably more popular than maybe what they thought. So why bring it up as an election issue when there are so many other things that are currently not going well in the country? Why would Republicans want to bring back up health care unless they have a replacement strategy?
It lumbers in the fictional realm alongside his plans to have a border wall paid for by Mexico.
He should explain why he didn't have Mexico pay for the border wall. He should explain why he racked up so much debt. He should explain why he didn't drain the swamp.
He is, as we all know, a pathological liar. The only difference now is he's getting worse at it.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.